problem is that the Sustal Sadi that the Abedas Atach is Me'er Lamailo. That's one union. That's the Pashas of the Medrash that the Eibshim Sadat is Midas did. And through the fact that Yidman didn't Shifrei and taking the Shefer, so the Me'er Lamailo that he should be Emin because there is be said. So Yidden, there is Tshuva and Abedas, the Advanced Aveda of the Yid. So they're Payel Lamailo, the Payel Lamailo, the Abedas Aran, that's the Sustal Sata, the Abedas Atach is Me'er Del. It's Amy. There is meaning Rayis. That the of Shubha, the Abedat Keshev is not only Mamshech and Inin, which is the Fierech, which is Mis'er through Abedat Satakim, but it's also Mamshech Atzmus. The first that brings is Mismichas Apsukim. As we say, the Pasuk of Abel Kim Yisrua, Avaya B'Lo Sheikh, which that Pasuk, Taishan Chazal, that the Eibishon starts Midas Adin, Elikin, and through Havaya, Vi Kondensutz, Havaya, B'Lo Sheikh, that the fact that you are taking Shefren, Me'er L'mayla, Midas Rachim, but B'Shmir, as I said, the Pasuk also says, Yivchar Lanu Sapos Ein. Yivchar did not B'chir is Dafke Atzmos. Dafke is a darga which has no Hagdor at all. The male you can choose, which is Dafke Atzmos, which is every other darga outside of the Eibush himself, outside of the Etzim, has a certain Hagdor. So it's not Shaykh. It's B'chir. Dafke Atzmos Shaykh. That's a raya, the fact that B'Shmir is Apsukim. So we're saying, so that's a raya that not only through Keshev Yer Mamshech and Inin, which is Nimshach Mitzad Abedas Atachtin, which is this area through Abedas Atachtin, but also Mamshech and Inin, which is Atzmos. This is Ein Rai. And there's been, we're in the middle of, I don't know if you have to read the whole manual inside. But there is another raya. The raya told us in the Slunas Apsukim, so to speak. But there is another raya from the Biur in Kabbalah and the Biur of Chassidus, was tut Tufki HaShefer. Was steht in Kabbalah, was tut Tufki HaShefer? That the Binyan HaMalchus, that the Seder Advarim is that the fact that the Yivchar was Kaplan himself, to be a melech and to be mitzantzim himself, to mashal himself, to create the world and to run the world, that's in of Ashkola. Being a melech is Ashkola. Although like Chassidus means even in the mashal, that a melech is a person which is he has no interest in leaving a Medina. He's not looking for power. Someone looking for power that's not the Musa melech. Musa melech is a ish mereimam, which means that taking care of and leading people and leading a country below his target. It's a tzimtzum. Malchus is even of tzimtzum, even of a yerida, ashkol. And the fact that the Eibush has no kabbalah himself, to be a melech, that Atchila was only a temporary thing. Melech Atchila from the Aschol Tzayisavos, it's not the fact that the Eibush all over saying and Emlich, and he all over saying and Emlich, and now he's a melech, he say for good. He's hashpola to be a melech. He's saying the Pashas, he say the Shlosh, it's hashpola to be a melech. And the Eibush has no kabbalah himself temporarily to be a melech. Means be'etzem he's mufshit from this in the Malchus. Be'etzem is merei. Temporarily, for a year, he's ready to be mashal himself and to be mahavas ayros. But every year, towards the end, that's what we're holding that part. Every Shana Kashir. We'll just start from the beginning. We started learning this. There is being a raya that Inaf Keshev is mamshach atzmos from the Inaf Keshev, the way it's mavur. What's the Nekudat Keshev is to be ma'ir the Inaf Malchus, to make to be Zayin Binyan Malchus, which that's through Shefer. Now, what's happened by Malchus? The Indian who that's the reason. It's Havas Kol elements from Binyan Malchus is better. That's his last. So everyone wants to bring out with this line that this Havas is inside Malchus. That means it's Ashpal. It's not the Pshat in of his Havas is Kaviyachol that expresses, or that's in part of the Yivchar's Etzim, so to speak. The whole thing of his Havas not going to be this Malchus. This is Mazra. Malchus Ashpala. Malchus Zatzimtzum. And therefore, Hamshavas HaMalchus B'chol Reish Hashana. Hirak Hashana Achas. It's only for 1 year. Because the Inin of Malchus is Etzim Zatzimtzum and Ashpala. So the Yivchar Kaviyachol is only ready to be mitzantzim himself temporarily. Nicht in dem steht sein Malchus, nicht in dem steht sein Etzim. So for Rosh Hashanah, and every year, every Hashanah in Chashecha, different Neschayis Chassidus exactly when the issue happens. Every year in 25, different Zmanim in them, but different Global. Every Hashanah in Chashecha means towards Shkiyat Zeitistus. Yichizeres v'Eiler v'Nechlaz v'Keir. Means that the union of Malchus, the Eibush is Chayzel Atzmosei. Instead of being Mashal himself and being slavish in Midas HaMalchus, the Lakus is not true of not being interested in being a melech, going back to himself, going back to the market. So the whole is how it's in CSL is going to be from the Malchus and the Yirish Shana b'im Chashecha. So the Mesiras, Samad say a person is working. So the fact that he's lowering his meichen and his midas in a certain pool is ashpal. And then there's a moment that the person goes back to himself. He goes back to his etzem, and then he's moved to her tuf arabim. He stops. So what's the pshat? That the Metzias Elul is not misbah. So then she considers Aliyah v'Asilu correctly pnim is a mamas. Shuatani barot l'shamal. That's not that the much the Yivchar stops creating the world. He loses his geschmack, so to speak, in his house. The time he goes to about a ganze Jahr, he's mamshach himself with the chrossen with shukah in this pool. And every year, mechodosh, he has to reconsider whether it's worth it for him, this hashpah, whether he's gaining anything from it, whether it hasn't his rotzen. So his geschmack, he gets, I've used this word, he gets, so to speak, burnt out. Someone does something for a long time, then they get verbrennt, it's not necessarily the pshat. But there's as ich steht Savi Vasili correct previous Amachos, so a tiny corruption show. The Chitzain is they continue creating the world, but the Chai is the Rotzen Verknis Battle. And the Chai is the Elul Shishani, and the flame that come to Chanei is only from Chitzain is Amachos. The Dugmas Adam Shleis Melachak Shu Bayif, Verefei Yadayim, in the time is a mensch the Zach with Ali Gishmak. He's doing it still. Means he already, let's say, he committed himself to do it. But then Chayis and Gishmak, he doesn't see that he's gaining anything from it. He's doing it, he committed himself, but he's not, the Gishmak doesn't nishtat. So Al-Derech Zed is Havas HaElum, is Rosh Hashanah. By night, until Tkei HaShefer, is from the Chitzenis of Holocaust, but the Primi Satanic Holocaust is not Mulubish in his Havas HaElum. K'pitzgim HaYedua, Shemlei Rosh Hashanah, L'fneinu Tamuchim Aleichem, HaElam Humamatzer Des Alphas. Farchalish, that's the Lashon that's brought in the Siddur. The Vod is Farchalish. Famous story, the lady was walking with another chassid, I think his name was Zalman Kurnitzah. So they were walking back from Shul, and this was Zalman Kurnitzah went to the lady, they say, Kubel, and he says, that there's the Durmita, there's a certain Durmita in Shana by night, and there's still the Kamach, he's asking the lady, because in Nicker and Welt, that there's he's trying to, if it's Nicker and Welt, that the world is in that the Sira Samad is, that the Chai Samahab Sa'ilam is in a state of Siluk. There's no time. So they're going by a river, and the lady said, you see that, so if you look well at the yam, you're going to see that the waves are the Eifenacher. The Strom God anders. That says it. But regular people can understand versteht it. As ich stehe. So this is, what's the reading this whole thing from? So what's the Aveda of Keshe? Shtam Chone Aleichem, Shirei Ratzen V'Tani B'Mluch. The Me'ere by the Eivishter an interest to be about. So now that I was reading, so the Eivishter said that you have to be Me'ere by who? Who do you have to be Me'ere by Ratzen? By the Darga Balakos, which is Mereima from the Dina Malchus. He lost Kaviyachol his Gishmak in being mashmal himself in the Sabbath Seimus. He's Chayzolatzmus, and now what's Nirga Shoshana is Zayn Primis is his Hecker from him. You have to be Me'ere by him, you should want to lower himself down again to be a Me'ere. Me'ere is Al-Ratzim the Chukka and the Tzimtzum. By them that from Me'ere is Al-Ratzim the Tzimtzum, Al-Ratzim the Chukka from the Tzimtzum, by the Darga which is Mufshit from Malchus. So you see that Aved Tkei Shefer reaches Darga Velakos, which is higher than Dina Malchus. Who's that's not a right in Islam Shachatzis. Here the Rebbe starts saying, that's the Rebbe continues. Yedua, maybe you say, there's addition to the certain Zayn HaMelech. Because Malchus is the lowest Hashpah, that's how it said. But maybe the Eibishter still is Mulubish in the union of Chachman, or the union of Yisod, other spheres. Sometimes like the Rebbe, here Yedua, Shasid B'Reish Shanu B'chol Madrigas. I mean, that's based on all of that. The fact that there's an entire state of Shtalshalos, and Giluim, that's all the Kavan, all the Tzerech Eilus. So when the Eibishter Kaviyachol, the timing of the Ratzim and Eilus is Nistalik, is Eilus Nechol Mkei, it's not only a Tziluk from the union of Midas HaMalchus. The whole Seder Shtalshalos is the union of Tzimtzum B'Yehuda, which is all the shame self in order for the union of Mitzvah. So the Siddiq of Leder Sheshan is not only in Tzviras HaMalchus, but it's in all Madregas, in Gan Seder Shtalshalos. Call that Dvarim Cheshim Kadmus. So that from Eres HaNachamal, beim Etzem, are Ratzim the time of the Mashmas of Midas HaMalchus. So by who do we have to be Me'er? Are Ratzim Lucha? By Atzmis. Because all the none of Gulim, nothing's the Hech. The Hech Stegili is all the Ratzim the Kavanah, for the sake of the Sabbath Seimus, in order for it to be Sabbath. So in B'Leder Sheshana, where this Chayzim Kal Advarim L'Kadmusa, the Eivshter Kaviyachol has to reconsider the entire tzimtzum. Was it worth it, this whole tzimtzum, and was it worth it, the whole thing of the Sabbath Seimus? So I'm Yidin Compel, the Torah always says look at the Torah, that L'Chatchila Bereshis Abriya, the Bria is always the Ashpah. Bereshis Abriya, the fact that the Eivshter Tzich Mashpil given was Ki Chavetz Chesed Du Mitzad the Eivshter's Ratzin L'Heitim L'Gro. But L'Achrei is Havas HaElum is, it's totally Bavin D'Sod, and we're from the MRA, so we have to be Me'er by the Eivshter Ratzin L'Tani L'Gro. By them, that's from Me'er Design. By Atzis, because the only thing that's left, so to speak, are all the Giluim on his back. The only thing which is the Etzim of Holocaust. And them Zot in Chassidus, that what's the Aveda which is Mamshech HaRatzin and Lucha, Tkei HaShefer. That means that the Aveda Tkei HaShefer is not only Me'er at Darga Holocaust, which their Maisa and Avraham mistake is marking, and Darga Holocaust is already mistantzim in the Tzir. That the Aveda and Zichon Ephraim are Me'er, that's a right, the Aveda Tkei HaShefer is Me'er, the Atzim of Holocaust. That's not so clear. You do it, Chol Advarim Chesem Chadmus, Shabbos HaMa'achal, Shana, Adishim Shichem, Me'atmos Eretz. Und sehr schön haben die Khuni ja nicht Kashe. Ich sagt dass was tut Ratzen da wird Kashe. So that's a lie movement to Kashe from a gas but answer second so. So there is bringing, so to speak, this part of the Maamar, two rayas. That Avedet Keshefer is not only Me'er Ra'in, which is the Fi'erech Aveda, which Aveda reaches and Aveda is spoiled, but it's Mamshech Atzmus, which is beyond the whole gather of Aveda and beyond the Chal and the gather of Mitzvahs. One raya is in the Smichas HaPsukim, that Yivchar comes together next to all of the Mitzvah. And another Indian is from the Etzem Yiddish of the whole Kovetz Keshefer, it's Mavor and Kabbalah, that it's important Me'er Yivchar Ratzin to be mashma himself for his Havas Eilus. And so, Ve'venet from Me'er is and there is separate from things, which is Atzmus. That's another. So the fact that Rabbi Shalom is and if Keshefer is mitzvah. Keshefer is a mitzvah. What's the gather of a mitzvah? In an atzivuim shayich dafkel achish hui yizbarach nasim el. Everything of the Pashas advar. The Rambam's lashon afapi the Gzeres HaKosov. The Keshefer is a mitzvah. The gather of mitzvah is the achad is there's already a ma'areches of there's a yachas, there's a melech and there's a am, and the melech is mitzvah has an interest in the am. He's a man of this medina. And in order to fulfill his kavanah, hater tzivui, that the Anshe Amidina. But that's all Ach Lachish Yizbar Nas Melech. Maamar Kaplan Malchusia the Chil Achar Yechayis Alechem Zeis. But b'chdei sheyeh Tamluchuni Alechem Shisol Eisem Yisrael Baruch HaMelech. Hodesh Magim Ba'atzmus Eidim Tzaf K'meshu Lefnei L'maylish Nas Melech. Ve'ich Efshe Shaydet Ki HaShefer, which is Kiyum Mitzvah Sitzivi HaMelech, Yasu Yisrael Baruch HaMelech. Chut Ki HaShefer is a mitzvah. So how can Meretoch Shana Dafar Ufton Me'er by the Etzem, which is beyond every tzir. Before he decided to be mashma himself to be a melech, before he decided to have a shaykhs to aveld and to nefroim and to give them mitzvahs, and there's kavanah in the mitzvahs, Meretach Me'er is and they should have an interest in the whole story. So how can you throw a mitzvah be Me'er by the etzem, which is higher than the tzir of the melech? So for them inside ayim, it's a move on that a Keshefer is shnei. We're not going to state in Torah that it's a mitzvah. You see the lashon that the Gemara brings, Amar Kishvach Imel Lafan Ma'achish is a mitzvah. It's one of the minyan mitzvahs. So there's two elements to Keshefer. There's one because it is a mitzvah, a tzivui. That means that the Yivchar is already a melech on one hand. We're going to have to understand it. The same thing that I said before. The medrash, the parshas medrash is that all of the Yisrael Avayim Kol Shayfer is that the Yivchar is in the Tunah bin the Sadin, and through the Tshuva Vayid, we're able by the Yivchar bin the Sarak. The derech al derech Shut L'Sadish Meir Sus L'Leil. We're not saying that doesn't exist. That even is also true. B'yachad Mizet Keshefer is also Mamshech Yivchar, which is higher B'chlal in the whole gather of Avayim. There's every single way also. On one hand, Keshefer is a mitzvah. And it's one of the minyan mitzvahs. A mitzvah means that there's already a system. There's a melech, and there's an am, and the melech is already interested in the am, and he gave them tzivuim already. And the dem was their kind his mitzvah, the meir nachasruach by the melech. That's la'achar, he was already mitzvah himself to have a shaykhs with the am, and he wants to carry out a certain image through that. And that image is true, Keshefer. So that means that the Chol Rosh Hashanah is where Yidden blood and Shefer. Before the Yivchar became a melech, after Esh Uftan Tamlichuni Aleichem, what's the pshat of the mitzvah? The mitzvah. That's on one hand. Le'idach, there's another Indian shayah. Deit ki Hashefer Magim Ha'atzmin said himself, Shalamayla M'chilas melech. But both the Inyanim are there. What's the pshat that before in the matzav of where the Yivchar is not a melech yet, so to speak, Rosh Hashanah in the morning, was not in Esh Uftan Melucha. So here, and it's a mitzvah. See, this is the mashal. This is already the Rebbe saying that before you could say there's kind of two dargis. Legabi the darg of Seder Shlashlos, the Aved of Shub is Me'er that darg. And another in it Keshefer is Me'er is Mamshech from Netzah. The Rebbe is saying, the Rebbe is the whole period of Shoshana, five kids. So the Yivchar is in the matzah of the Shoshana, five kids. So the Yivchar is in the matzah where he's not a melech yet. And Avon became this together of a mitzvah. So one of Keshefer is beyond the musik of a mitzvah. It's Me'er by the Yivchar Ratzah Yisrael. It's Le'idah, so that get it from mitzvah. So this is what we're going to have to understand. How do you have both in Yonim in the same Ibranish Kemelech? I'm saying, Chassidus brings the mashal always from the Rasak. The Rasak says that one of the 10 Yonim Keshefer, one of the Yonim is that Alder by the Matam is the coronation, so they have the Chatzaitzers, they have the Tkiyas. Alder is Al-Mata, since Shoshana is the Hamloch of Eivishir, so there's Keshefer. But here, so then it's not a mitzvah. The Tkiyas that you blow when you're being Mamlech the king is not Kiyum Tzivei That's part of making him a king. Here, on one hand, Keshefer is one of the Medina mitzvahs. Pashtam mitzvah sayeh Shefer, it's a mitzvah. And this mitzvah is also being piled after. So interessant as that. What's the pshat in them? So this we're going to have to see. This you don't have in the mashal. You don't have in the mashal. By the Achtara, you're machta the melech. By the Achtara, so you're before the melech came. Before the melech was mashal himself to give tzivui. And Chassidus Hakem Evar, that's why the bit of Shoshana is a higher, deeper darga of bittul. Al derech by the Achtara, that the bittul of the Am by the Achtara is a much deeper bittul. There are different chassidus like that. You don't have this musik that b'shas Achtara you also have the Hagdara of the mitzvah. So you can here we're going to see that in the Nim Shalom Ayla you have both in Yonim if they uftan the Inin of Malchus side the Inin of being Mamshach Etzem, which is beyond the musik of mitzvah. Also you have the Inin of the mitzvah Kiyashet, which mitzvah means that there's already a relationship between a Melech and a Am, and there's a Tzimtzum and a Yachas to the Am. That's the game. That's the thing. Here, the Rebbe brings us answer. So till now we have two inyan in Kiyashet. We have one inyan is that the inyan of mitzvah, the inyan of all of the Kim Yisrael, which there's already a shaykhas in the Yivchar and the Yid. Already. Or he's a melech over a Yid. So there's already a connection. And Kiyash and the Meir and the Chazal, through our Zerat and Shuvah, we're ma'ared by him in Midas Rachmi, or through Kim Tzivoy, we're getting a Chesroch, there's already a shaykh. So that's Kiyashever's Mamshach, that Dargan Olukus is already as a shaykhas to the Avedis and the Kohen. We have another inyan that Kiyashever's Mamshach from Etzem, which is beyond, and here there is mitzvah 30 that we see in the Get Kiyashever. I'm not making a board. Here comes a whole different video. Until now we were learning Kumtais that inside the Etzem was according to the Meir we just learned before. The first raya, the fact that we need to have the fact that Kiyashev is not Shachas is that it's Miras Hafsik. I told him there's a place here. No one's sitting there.
I'm not going to block the camera?
There's no camera.
Oh.
You can say whatever you want.
I feel so much more comfortable now.
So you have a camera stand on that?
No, I'm just getting the name right.
Okay. So or you can sit here.
Should I?
It's up to you. I'll go fun. So what would you have?
Raise your hand if I should sit next to you.
Let me get my what comes out according to the beer? According to the beer before, what's the raya that Kiyashever is Mamshach from Atzvah Sinsa? What's the raya? The Parsha of the Barim is, what do we want to accomplish with Kiyashever? I'll be Parsha. One day he should be a melech. He should be mashal himself to create the world. We want to salvage the elements. And for salvage the elements, we don't need the fact that Yivchar is Ein Sof. We're zuchen is Atzmus. We're zuchen that the Yivchar should be mahavas the elements. The pile, since the only one we can turn to, but Shoshana is only Atzmus Ein Sof, because there's a siluk in all of the dargis. But in order to create, what Zmir zuchen is salvage the elements, Malchus. Malchus is a dargah of Tzimtzemes in Elubus. The only way to be me'ered, to be mashach, in the Malchus is only if you're going to relate to Atzmus Ein Sof. But not that in Malchus, in order for Malchus to be nimshach, darf man onkommen und the etzem of Malchus to Atzmus Ein Sof. I think the Rebbe continues here is that the fact that the Kiyashever darf man mamshach from Atzmus Ein Sof is because Malchus, in order to have Malchus, Malchus is Deidish Tamshach of Atzmus Ein Sof. It's a different view. Not like the way that I was saying before is, what we want to accomplish in Shoshana is Malchus. The only one to turn to, the only one we could get Malchus from some Atzmus Ein Sof is just Silik and all of the Madrims. The Rebbe is going to be mamshach here that the type of inyan which we need there in Shoshana demands Atzmus Ein Sof. Let's get the Rebbe on the Maamar. Another inyan. I'm not making a board. Hatam Azeh Shebdeshi Yevin Malchus is traffic through the Amshach of Atzmus Ein Sof. L'chora Malchus is a direct thing to sense. You say, what do you need in order for the Yivchar to be mashal himself to create a world? The elements are full. The Chaisel kiss which is needed to mahavas the elements. L'chora Chaisel kiss which is b'midim tzimtzemes. And I've Atzmus Ein Sof to b'shaf and avel. So I've steht noch Chassidus yet, in order to have Sfiras HaMa'az of an onkommen to Atzmus Ein Sof. You need a koyach of Atzmus Ein Sof. The Rebbe is going to be mad. This is from a Maamar $9. Shir HaMa'az $9. So here, there's two inyan of Malchus. Till now, there's Malchus, was Meret Frir is, there's two inyan of Malchus. One inyan is this Havas Metzias Eilim. That Malchus, the different view of Malchus, there's Dibur Malchus, there's Helim, it's Nasus, so in order to have this Havas of a Metzias is that to the Sfiras HaMa'az. Das ist ein Satz. Da der Rebbe hat zweite Satz. Der Rebbe schreibt there, and he says here that the Nekuda of Malchus in Yonah Hugili. Nothing in Malchus. Da steht noch Siddes. That on one hand, Malchus, the fact that there's Metzias Vazulas is Nevea Mitzad Sfiras HaMalchus, that his Nasus, that his Mailim Master and the Pirish Shal Mailim Mitzad Hem Bert and Metzias Shal Yesh. Helabest. And there's another thing in Malchus. Nekuda of Malchus is also in the Moshel of Dibur that to be able to give over the course to a Metzias which is Mechutz from the community. Malchus in Yonah Hugili. Gili. Mitzad is Fidish Shalom Alim in Malchus, Adar Chsev the Mashal Nefesh Adam. That in order for a Zulas to be the person to communicate his Svarah, his Regesh, the Zulas is through Dibur. The Zulas is another Mitzvah outside of him. In Machshav, in Regesh and Seichel and Mitzvah, so dort in Herzach the Nefesh only clapping the person himself. Mashiach to give over your svaris, your dagesh, to Azulas, is through Dibur. Dibur is the Keach HaGili, to give over what's going on by you to someone else, to another. There's somebody, there's some else. Nivraim are Metzias Zulas Abalukas, outside of the Eibush, a different function of Metzias, a Nivra. And the Indian of bringing that the Lukus should be Nimshach and Vel, that's for some Malchus. Malchus is Keach HaGili. Malchus is Yanu Gil. Gala Malchus, it's not negate to go into the Pratim of let's negate to this mind. Gama Malchus b'Chosfira Yanu Keach HaGili Shel Asfira. Yeah, Midrash state that derech le'av in Chachma and Bina, let's say. So Chachma is the Nekuda and Bina is Pratim. But in order for Bina is Pratim, this is said to be a process, the Nekuda is a Chachma. But who's the one? Bina is a different type of Keach. Bina is a Keach to be Mefaret and Pratim, let's say everything. Hashem Chachma is being typed as something in a way of a Nekuda. The Kayach, every sphere is Kayach, all 10 spheres, all yet spheres. It's Chachma Shem Chachma, Bina Shem Chachma, Buddha Shem Chachma. The fact that the Nekudas Chachma is able to be nirgash in Bina, that's the Kayach HaGili of that sphere, of that. If it wouldn't be the Malchus Shem Chachma, so Chachma is a Nekuda. But the Nekuda wouldn't be nice and walking that it should be nirgash in a Kayach, which in Yoni is the fire of the Prat. So the Indian every sphere, every Kayach has the fact that this Kayach can be nirgash in a Kayach Shem. The Nekuda of Chachma should be nirgash in Bina, and Bina should be able to process the Nekuda. That's through the Kayach HaGili of Sfiras HaChachma, which is the Prince Malchus of that sphere. In other words, the Nekuda of Malchus is there's the Indian itself, there's the Chachma itself, or there's the person himself. Then there's the Kayach to communicate this Mitzias to Adavar Shechutzin, to Adavar Shel Zulas. Not to give space for a Zulas. That's one Indian of Malchus. That he's mild on the Etzem and he's nice and muckim to Mitzias of another. Here the Red Benafidin, the Nekuda of Malchus is the Kayach HaGili to give over the Svara or the Nefesh of one person that should be able to communicate it to Zulas. Every spirit has the Malchus of the Chosfei. That's what the Baruch is dark in Ein Beis. Now, Malchus of the Chosfei, you Kayach HaGili Shel Asfira. Shigili Shal Adei Malchus Asfira Subatzilus. Today she Gili Bibriya, it said Asiyo, the Malchus Meshu Parsi B'nat. Now, then I Chadibur Shabbat. Malchus in Adibur, Malchus there. Shugili the Zulas. I mean, there's a big difference between the Kayach HaGili of Chachma, let's say, and the Kayach HaGili is Pashut the Nekuda of Dibur. Kayach HaGili of Chachma is all with Chachma and Bina are both two Kayachs in the person. But in order, this fact that a Kayach has the ability to be able to be nirgash in another Kayach, that's a Nekuda, a certain musig of communication to Azulas Shabbat Amat, and that's also a musig of Malchus. But that's all, first of all, the Nekuda of there, it's the Shloime Asfir. Chachma, if Chachma wouldn't have the ability to be able to be nirgash in the Pratim, but given us Chisar and Chachma. Mashing the Nekuda of Dibur, by Malchus is Kayach HaGili, the Nekuda of Dibur, there from Mashal Dibur Shel Adam. So a person, without Dibur, there's nothing lacking in the Seichel Midas where a person has no ability to communicate. The only Chisar is that the Zula is Kenish Mekabazim. So the Malchus, the way there's a part of Natsme is not in Yoni the Shloma, the Shleimus HaKevis. Another in order for a Zula to be able to mekabel the Ashpa of the person. Malchus B'chol Sfira is Safka Saf, even, first of all, communicating so or to the Hergish HaKeach to another Keach Shabbat Matzah. And the main thing is, it's negate to the Shleimus HaKeach. In order for Chachma to be able to be the Shleimus, he has to be able to be processed later and further. Now there's a Bina for Das, and Das for Midas. The River Gang, from Meichem to Midas, is not only Negeya for Midas, also Negeya for Shleimus HaMeich. Mashenki, the Malchus, the Midas parts of Natsme in Yana is not, there's no Chisar in the person himself when he can't give it over to someone else. But there's a Keach but Nefesh, which in Yana is to communicate those Tutzah but Nefesh to Azulas. This prat is going to go back to these two Yana. Malchus waits a prat in the Spheres, he waits a prat in Atzilis, and Malchus waits in the Natsme to be Mamshech, the Gil of Atzilis in the Vrah. So, no, they share Gil of Bri, Tzil Asiyo, they have Malchus Mesh Parts with Natsme. But I think we should watch Gil of Zulas. They don't have to say, yeah. Ili b'gam al Shirei Shoshana, who was going to be Shirei Shoshana, in other words, he's trying, he wants to bring out, in order to say, when you get that person, we could say this. What is a person delivering to Azulas through his Dibur? The Pashto is only a argument in Tzemmes from Mesech Lumitz. There's Svarda be the Mensch Alein versteht, or the Regesh Abba, the way the person himself feels, that can be communicated to Azulas. Through Eish Sad Dibur, so it is this Samsim, and only a certain limited percentage of the Hergesh is given over to Azulas. So the amount of the Regesh and Hergesh is given over to Azulas through Dibur is a Dargam in Tzemmes. What do you need Atzmas Yitzhak? The Rebbe Shach started to explain that the Nukud of being a Malchus Shoshana is not just there should be the of his house. There should be Gila Lukusim Pia. Dem soll haben Gila Lukusim Pia, davon umkommen zu Atzmas Yitzhak. So what's by Gila Lukusim? So in the Maamar Shloime who not stand there should be a Gila Lukus in Vel in Bia Shagila year later could have to be Bia which then if the whole Lukus of Maamar Shloime was there should be the Gila Lukus in Bia Ruchni in Yamot wat nicht gedacht onkommen zu Atzim sehen so. It's what we want to accomplish. But the Kavanah is the Lukus of the Maamar Shloime is as a sign Gila Lukus in Asiya Gash. ובזה עצמי למטה עד בעדיים. Which the daimim is not a keli to Lukus. Has no kelim at all. Say a person, a nibber elam has a, Adam and elam has a, Sov kol Sov is a keli to some tinu of ruchnis. If you tzimtzum ayy. So to be mamshach a Lukus to a person is a shalei be'erach, a bigger tzimtzum the mamshach b'yar ruchni. But Sov kol Sov, he has the shaykhs to ruchnis. The shaykhs to be a keli to ninyu. Mashik in daimim, there's a tzemer, there's a certain chayis ruchnis tzemer. Mashik in daimim is not a, it's just mitzvah, it's just matter. Just the, there's no keli to any hemshach to any ruchni. And the Kavan Meshashana is not only should be as Gilei Lukus by Nefran, by Umasayla. Adayim Mamash. The steins on their head and that Yeheda Kopal Katakal. That's the good Meshashana. Uftan Gilei Lukus in a Niblu which is mitzad his Chulis has no musig of Keli at all to any Mitzias outside of what it is. It does have to Uftan Meshashana. And the Rebbe Mamash to explain that in order to Uftan Azayini, that for Onkum Mitzvah Asim itself. No. Till the Biyurim, till now, wasn't that Onkum Mitzvah is, it's like a Smichas Absukim Everdaye, and because the only one we're able to turn to is Ta'atzmas, because everything else is a Stalik. Here they're never saying, what's going on with the Rosh Hashanah? Malchus, what's Pshat Malchus? Nish Sam, should be this Havas HaMitzias. The Mashach Gilei L'Kusenbel. In order to have Gilei L'Kusenbel, you need the Kayach of Atzmas in Sovich. So let's get to the Ruch.
What does it look like when the Damon gets the book? What are you looking to accomplish exactly?
How does it going to look? How does it look when the Nik Barol Chol Basar Yachtov? It says when they get to the Baal Shem Tov that the Chutim of the Tzitzis used to be misnaneh. That brings it as a dogma to the fact that have Ashpa on the Damon. The threads, woolen threads, would be misnaneh inside the Kavanas of Tefillah of Baal Shem. What this means, but you say there's no heritage.
I'm saying, what are we looking after Rosh Hashanah? What are we looking to accomplish?
See this year.
Yeah, why not?
You're saying with the pile every single year we're mamshach that the nibra should be more touch holocaust. Where can be misbatim in tzias in the pile, the fact that they can use out certain things for holocaust, that even a lower thing could be a keli for holocaust. Saying the fact that you can use out even dvarim nemuchim sheba'ilam, they should be a messiah for being a farsim holocaust. That's also a kiddush. I'm saying a Malach Adairis, you couldn't use certain types of, could be wrong, I'm just saying theoretically the idea. They could use a different type of mitzvahs, that they should be a lavush, to be manshach al kusindal. And not only, the Asal we're manshach that every year to a certain degree Shoshana, there will be nirgash, you look at a phone, the only thing you're going to see is that it's a memutzah to be manshach al kus. It's a way to hear nachabar. Hein kukmish, hein, it's mitzvahs. You know, you do this, you do that. And you can also use it for a lot. You can look. This is what's going to be the definition of phone. What is it? It's you look at an Evan. What's in Yoni of an Evan? A chetinza to be able to bring a stone to this image. That's going to be the definition of Evan. It's not only in our perspective. That's going to be the mitzvah.
The Yeda is the Shema Moshel. It's not actually its
He
Yeda.
has knowledge. He's going to be permeated with Hakar of Elokus in the Evan's Hakar.
The Evan's own Hakara.
In the way exactly. I don't know how the Evan experiences things, but in his, that's going to be his definition. That in Yoni is a Keli Telekos, in Yoni is to be Meisif in the Eibush, there is a cover. The Gemara said that the Evan Mekir Tizah. What's the pshat? Evan Mekir Tizah. The Evan Mekir, the stone itself is going to scream Shabbos again. What's the pshat on that? The Kof is Salosh Naposik. The Evan itself is Arisha. Huh? It's not such a pashut. The Evan is the Metzias Daimim, but it's going to be called in Yoni, it's going to be Elokos, and if you're going to want to be Menatik him from Elokos. Is it the Shet Naimim, the Bulach, the stones you're going to...
It's Kipshatai.
Basic, but it's sounding more than Shet. What do you mean? It's going to have a physical voice. How's it going to sound? But the Indian is going to meet it. In Yoni is Elokos. And the fact that it's not Elokos is going to be a spirit of Metzias. How it's going to be?
You don't know if it's Kipshatai or not.
No.
Find out.
We're not Kabbalists. No, like you asked me as but the Likud is that it's going to be premier Elokos. Ad ba'adayim, k'she'em b'tzvah sheshana v'yeda kol pol k'atav. Shkam adayim sheba'asiyah yeda k'atav. What's the pshat yeda? What's the idea of this? he's not going to become a human being. He's not going to have das v'seichel, but he's going to be fully permeated in this truth that his whole Metzias is Holocaust. The way a diamond takes things, I'm saying I don't know.
Kasha l'tzayer.
Yeah, Kasha l'tzayer. But the Indian can verstehen. The Indian, what we're dealing with. That the stone is going to be called in Yoni is Holocaust, that's going to be the Metzias. What I'm saying is, a table in Yoni is a table, right? And you said there's even a nefesh table. So the table in Yoni is a shulchan. Lost love, you'll be nisgaler. What's a shulchan? And so you to be able to learn on it. And that's going to be the reality of a table k'pshita. So if you're going to say maybe someone has a shalom, someone is in touch with the nitzutzis, I don't know exactly how it works. But if you ruin the table or do something hekach in Yoni, so it's you're breaking its mitzvahs. So lost love in Yoni is going to be a table hekach tintzit telekis. Lamm zem d'shteit. As ich steht, this is what the Rebbe Shab says. What do we accomplish in Great Shoshana? The Mamshach Elokus should permeate the entire reality. Not only our seichel. Mebet. We need the what's the mitzvah of Malchus? The Nekuda Malchus is the Keach HaGilu. Same in the Nefesh as the Dibur Shabbat. Is the Keach HaGilu that the seichel the Midah Shabbat should be Nergish HaMetzias should be Chutz Menu. Out there, so the Spheres HaMalchus and the other Spheres HaMalchus is the Gili of Elokus, the Metzias which is outside of Elokus. Und dort soll man Luft der Rosh Hashanah. We want to be Mamshech Elokus, the Inner Malchus Elokus, which is to be Peil Gili Elokus, in a Nivro which is Kaviyachal outside of the Eibush, independent of Elokus. Not independent. Outside of Elokus. And we will Uftan Zalana Gili Elokus in the Lamata Mata Mamsh, every single target. Till the Tom, the Gashmi Shabasi. But I said, God wants to stand there, Rebbe speaks by Rebbe in the Sefer. After Rebbe after Shoshana, what do you do with the Kolken of the Rebbe Shoshana? After Rebbe down to stand there. I think the Rebbe speaks this in Nekuda also, that even the diamond is looking at the Torah. So, even von dem Malchus ist am Mechuni Aleichem, und bei Menschen, wo sagt man das in der Chazal, even von dem Malchus ist am Mechuni Aleichem. Where do you see that am Mechuni Aleichem, we're not taking a yid, we're not taking a called Paul, a diamond should have a korban of the So the state wasn't shad by Medeshe. My time was actually massive Midas Malchus. It only could was be appealed by Yidden the Eibishter's Malchus, we should have a korban of the So that's Mir Alein Zagim Psuki Malchus. What do you need to have? What do you have to blow a horn of an animal? וזה נעשה דתקיע שפר במייסה. בידי שהמייסה דתקיע שפר שתקם השפר של דהימו, דים שחגילי גם בעניין המגשמי, דהימו שבאות. בכדי שיום שחגילי למטה יש, עד בעד דהימים, צורך שקרן השפר שבי תקן יהיה טוב שבלי מחובר לדהימו. It has to be a dheim. We want it. The remes is that it's a shaper was coming from a behemoth. To be meram is that we want to be mamshech. It's easy to be mamshech in a stone somewhere. We want to bring the behemoth shabbat. Means in the lamata is there should be the herkish of and even not the behemoth the way it's connected to the other. The way it's a dheim mamshech. Dort echel mamshech and this is. So now the Rebbe is coming to explain why. But it's with the nazazah that from onkel means answer to it. So here there's what the Rebbe says the pashas in the Maamar, and then there's what the Rebbe builds. Ganz ehrlich gesagt. Lower on even a couple. This is one of the Kovetz inside. There was like this pini kosher. The cloud is a kosher. So the chol the Shabbos is like vil mashas and gilu because in bia. The chol bia is daim. Daim is the lowest target. You see, use the mashal of I said before. Deeper is the kayach to bring over the seichel v'regesh ha'adam to azulas. Through the Aces at Dibur, so you bring over the Svara to Azulas. How much of the Regesh can be delivered to another person? A chelik with Tzumtzum of the Regesh. The Avid, the way the person himself feels it, or the experience, the way he felt it, that can't be given over to someone else, to Azulas. But if it's Aces are Mailim on the Kufat, and they only give over chelik Kitzaini of the Regesh to Azulas. So, what type of Chayes Liki, what percentage, so to speak, of Lakus do we need? To what type of darga is going to be nimshach in a pole shabasir? L'chora darga is mitzvah smayim. What is the Evan able to be a keli for? Be able to a keli to insaf. The Evan is going to be a keli that its mitzvah is calling nani is for the shem shemayim. Or there is the hemish adam. So what do you need to have? Answer say mitzvah for that. So the Rashaf says that kol sham shachil matiyes or the sham shachol matiyes. That's the parshas you have a regular cloud. That kol gaveg is here the matiyes. The simple dogma that Chassidus brings, the same thing we have when we get Mishemesa, Meir, Botlu, Meshlu, Mishalim, where the Milo Shloime was that Eidaber Shloime, Shleishes Alaf and Mashal. But the Rebbe said, what's the big afla that he spoke 3,000 Mishalim? Or Chassidus brings that, that in order to teach the younger kids, you have to have a Chacham, which is a lower Chacham. And to teach older kids, you have to have a higher Chacham. is a the power to be mamshach the seichel to a lower darga is not from someone that he has the Indian not in a limited way. Someone that has this tfis that understands almost only in a limited way, only according to his tfisa. He's only able to give over the Indian to someone which is on his level, but to give over to someone which is on a lower level than him, can understand. The power to give over the svara to someone that's in a much lower darga is dashke by a chacham gadol. She sees the Einikei or the etzim. So there's no limit of how he can give it over. He can give it over to Makim Kaplan. That's the Rashi says this many times. The Rashi says a lot of mashal. And the Pasha, that's also what he says here. The Kol Shal Shach Lamati is the fact that he's able to be mamshach the earth, the kayach, to bring an Indian. Lamata mata, you need the shadish has to be from a Makam El Din. You're saying over here, to be mamshach, that even to be mamshach Holocaust, a person has a saga Havana Holocaust. That his Havana should inspire another person, Inka, but to inspire the Behemoth. That your tfis, you have to have a zashat according to the course that even an animal should be able to relate it. So you have to be able to take the Indian in a much deeper way. And therefore you don't have the limit. You're only able to give it over to someone that has your cake. You're able to give it over also to Behem. Bis tzad man. So kol ha'gavei is here in order to be nimshach lamata mata. That from onkomint a kayach of a hamshach l'mayla. That's the passion to get word. But the Rebbe Hashem brings there a dugma, this is the Rebbe's in the Shloime Zechan. So this is all a quote from Ein David. So two now, it's regular, Kol Hashem Lamadi Yis, the Shem 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 is Lamadi Yis. But brings a dugma as their name is, Mikeach HaFlo Shulcha, Sha'yirida Hu Kfi Eifen HaFlo. What does the Rashab say? It says that in Chachma there's two kayas. There's the Keach HaFlo, and there is the Keach HaYirida. Keach HaFlo is Mazur, there is that something which I don't know how much but there's two types of ways of being types in the Indian, which is two keiches and seichel. There's one keich is regular the musik of tfisa v'asaga, pashtei nazar. But there's pashtan. Then there's a special keich to be able to see an Indian the way it's mufshit from tzir, the way it's mufshit from the tzir of asaga also. To be margish the pshittus of the Indian, not the way it's limited in a certain, not the way it's defined in a certain tzir. There's the keich ha'flosh b'chacham. There's a keich to be able to, people calls it hafshata, to be able to memapshit an Indian sichli from his tziyurim, and to be able to see the etzim Indian the way it's mufshit from tziyurim. It's fine as a keich, benefish. But just to give you a dugma ba'alma, this is mamish, this is but just to give you maybe a dugma ba'alma. But you have like, there's a regular eifin is, you learn, let's say, a gemara, a svara, you're learning there's different diagrams, the depth of that svara. Then there's the mashal that Rebbe brings, for example, someone the figure says in a Maamar that in every svara there's the guf of the svara, there's the nefesh of the svara. So someone asks the Rebbe in a letter, what's the pshat? There's the guf of the svara, the nefesh of the svara. So I remember the details. The Rebbe brings him a dogma that the Gemara says that ain't other meis pun of the pnei bal chayv. It's a club. Someone is a pay for hakel. Someone says you owe me $1,000, and the person is pay for hakel. The never the hayit bar me'elam. There's chazaka that he's saying the truth, because if you tackle borrows from your money. Person wouldn't have the chutzpah. Ain't other meis pun with pnei bal chayv. Someone that lent you money, you wouldn't have the chutzpah to be paid for and say that the hayit bar me'elam. So the fact that you pay for hakel is a right is of the members. Ain't other meis pun. So there's one way you can understand this svara of ain't other meis pun with pnei bal chayv. Noch tiefer. It's better the argument, you can understand. The Rebbe says there's another way is this is like this. A behemoth of the marshal doesn't have this type of the meis pun of pnei bal chayv. The behemoth does not. From one stammt is that a person has the edelkeit, even the ish mechutzim. He has the edelkeit that he won't be meis pun if someone did him a favor. Sheir sharsha is from the edelkeit of nefesh adam. So a person could. There's one way of looking at this word. This is not. They're saying. From one stammt is because there ain't other meis pun of pnei bal chayv. That's inside a certain stammt because someone which has no sensitivity at all. Hatish shazam tzazah. A behemoth which is not margish and doesn't know how to relate to the hatish shazam tzazah. Where does it come from? The sheir sharsha, the fact that a person is not meis pun of pnei bal chayv because he's sensitive. And like a person did me a favor, he has a basic edelkeit not to be mischaz. Where's the sheirish of this edelkeit? That there's a certain edelkeit in the nefesh of a person. L'umar the nefesh of the behemoth. So through this svara of Ein Adam Meis Pnei Bal Chayv, you can have you can be nis'alet to be able to see the edelkeit of nefesh Adam Mechal. There is Maamar, but there are different dargis in the svara of Ein Adam Meis Pnei. So there's one way. There's a svara. Ein other person doesn't have the chutzpah to be makish someone that did him a favor. The depth of the svara. different. Is it because you did him a favor, or is it because, or differently find him the chutzpah? That's the emek of the svara. Then there is your mapshit the svara from his tzir. You don't see this tzir of chutzpah tabachar. You see your mapshit from his tzir, and you see within the svara a bitui or expression of the edelkeit of nefesh adam b'chlal. The kuda that a person has sensitivity to someone else would be a favor. The shtam, because there's a certain bittul b'nefesh adam. And the nefesh adam is makir. He's makir. It's not all about himself. That he's makir an Indian, which is objectively true. He's makir the musig of. There's a musig of midas and there's musig of anushis. There's a certain nikud in nefesh adam that inside that he's able to. He's centered to something true. That's being mafshit to svara pratis from his tzir and seeing it an Indian which the edelkeit of nefesh adam is mufshit from tzir. That's really a nikud of pshitas, the nefesh adam itself. So there's one way of being mimic. There's a svara. The svara has a tzir to see the imik of svara. Then there's the keach hafshat of chacham to be mafshit the svara from the tziyurim, from the levushi asad. That's the nefesh from the levushi asad, and to be able to see it an expression of the Indian of pshitas, the way it's mufshit from tzir. I heard that's not opinion. Or the mechlobas, I don't know if this is correct, but even klali, there's a difference between, let's say, in Nigla that are in Shavra and regular type of svara, so regular type of lamas. So different examples, but if you use, everybody knows the Chikir, let's say, the Gabi Pesach. So there's machlokes Yehuda Chachamim, if you have to burn the chametz dafka, or you can just throw it into the yam. So you can learn the svara, you can learn the Emeka svara. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to dafka burn it. And so there's a different differences between Rabban and Rabbi Yehuda. The svaras, Emeka svaras. The Yivchar comes and says the difference is where is Chacham and is Isser chametz in the etzem or is in the tzur. So that's not the Gemara. Pashas brings a limud from Neiser Gzeir Shavah. The Neiser and Chacham don't hold it Gzeir Shavah. And it could be different. Then there's looking at it from a different planing answer. You're being mafshit from the tzir of this limud, this Gzeir Shavah, or the srei for this or that type of thing. You're seeing in it not malubish in a certain tzir. You're seeing the way it's mufshit from a tzir. Chayim and tzur b'chlal. Is the Isser chametz in the Mahusar Dover or it's in the Tzura of the Mitzvah? There's two different ways, two different keichas in Seichel. There's one keichas Seichel is to see the depth of an Indian. And there's another Indian to be mafshit an Indian from its tziyurim and to be able to see it from the point of view of pshittas which is beyond tziyur. That's the Maamar. So Rebbe Rashab says, it's keich of Losh B'chach. There he says, then there's the keich hayirid of Chach. Person has the ability as Tashtana Nazah to be masber the Indian to a darga which is lower than him. That's Medaber Shloime Shleish Lef Moshe. So Tashtana the Indian are very deep with it. But you have the Kayach to lower the Indian down and to explain it or to bring out how this Indian is also expressed in lower elements. And that brings us Shleish Lef Moshe that Shloime was in the darga of Yitzira, let's say, and from Yitzira to or darga Bria or from there to Lasiya is Shleish Lef Dargas. So there's a special Kayach to be made to be mitzamtzim in Indian. There's the way the Rabbish takes the Indian, to be made it, to be able to see how this Indian could be expressed, could be explained in lower elements, in lower darkness. Darkness, two separate cases. There's the Keach HaFla, the Keach to be able to be mafsh the Indian from the Tzir. And there's the Keach HaYirid, the Keach to explain and to lower the Musik down to explain it in a lower darkness. The Rebbe Rashab says, the Keach HaYirid of Chacham is Eifen HaFla. That means that according to the Eifen of Keach HaFla, there was certain Baseichel, not regular Baseichel, let's say, regular people. Some, the Keach HaYirid, that's what it's doing with Shloime. The Keach HaYirid, if you mamshach this idea to lower ilm is, it's K'fi'eif in the Keach HaFshata that this person has in status. The Yirid is K'fi'eif in HaFla. Sheb'ltei l'hered is Aseichel al-Bishim ben-Moshel, without K'sheides, that's a meaning. That's a Shtei in the mind. So the Rebbe tells us, what does he want to, what's the part, what does the Rasha want to bring out? But the Chari is bringing a pashtas up. He wants to say that, why is it that there's not Meir is from Asim Seirin Sof? Because we want to be Mamshech, Resh Hashanah Banal, the Siris Bin Amal. Bin Amal is Mamshech, of course, not only in the Vrayim, Edel in the Vrayim, Chvis Malachim, but even in Edel Hazeh, the lowest of the low darkness. This is B'dei Mamish. And the Klal is, the Kol HaYered, L'mata Mata B'Yeser, that from Onkum it's the Sher Sham Shachal L'mata Yeser. It's explained many times in this. The very, to be a Mitzamtzim, a Seichel, to a lower target, so you have to have the Indian in a broader Eifen than just your signal of Tfisa. So what's Hektar on the Eifen? The Keich HaFla of Chachman, there's the Keich HaPshata of Chachman, and there's the Keich HaYiridus of the Yered HaPshata. It's a general thing, the Kol HaYered, Kol Sham Shachal L'mati Yisr, Sher Sham Shachal L'mati Yisr. What does he bring here? This dogma. Very about the dogma. He's a dogma of the Keich Afla, of Chachma, Shiridik Feif and Afla. Let's get to the Rebbe wants to bring out that the general Indian wants to bring out what's not onkemen so atzma itself. So Avada to explain an Indian to low dargay mamshech, Indian to lamata you need to have kol hagavayis here lamata. But that's one Indian. The Rebbe Hashem wants to bring out a specific Indian, a hechad Indian of atzma itself, which that is brought out back through bringing this Indian of the Yerida which stems from the Keich Afla. Let's get to the Rebbe. The B'Shem Adavar has it. Let's see the Rebbe reading. I'm going to have what the Rebbe started. There's a Zlohay. So this Dum now does state in English. Move our Dum. Keich Afla Shabbat. The element is B'Teich Ein, yeah? So state as if, oh, you should be Keich, I didn't say Shloime. First the Rebbe starts saying, before the Rebbe starts explaining the two in the Lamaila Yaiser, that Keich Afla. Okay, the Rebbe starts saying in Yonim, we're speaking about the Keich to lower, a person had a Chacham God. He sees the certain Gedank. There's a special Keich to be Mamshech the Inni Lamatayes. Not every Chacham has it. The Rebbe Shach says over there, the Maamar, that you could have a Chacham that he sees the Inni itself. He doesn't have the Keich either. There's two in Yonim in the Keich either. One Inni should be Choti L'Tzamtzim Sasech L'Shigil L'Ferat. There's another Inni should be Choti L'Halim Sasech L'Dishim L'Dishim L'Mosh. Two separate in Yonim. And since it says in Moshel, we have there's one Indian person, the Rav understands the depth of the Indian. He has to give it over to a Talmud. So he has to be able to give the Indian without expressing the God of the Emek Indian. To be mitzamtzimit, not is das nicht in the ganze Tifket in the Rav. But he doesn't have, but there's seichel. There's seichel bringing out the whole Emek Indian. And then there's seichel without being mitzamtzim, it shouldn't be nergash the whole Emek and the whole Rashket of the Indian. That's the Indian. But you're not leaving the svara that you're saying. So you can understand the depth of the svara. And then he's explaining, he wants to start, he has the ability to mitzamtzim the Indian to give even a Talmud, which is not equating to the whole Emek, a pashtat fis in the musig that there's a mile and a musig over someone which is amazing. Not that even if someone doesn't understand the depth of a musig and the Emek should be brought, you give it over to something together. But you're not leaving the svara. The svara and mitzamtzim together. Then there's a payah. What's the nekuda of a mashal is a mashal is not a lower version of the svara, of the gedank, of the idea. A mashal is a story. Say there's reiv and miyut. You can explain the concept of the mile of majority over a miyut. There's the eimikav, havan of the mile of reiv over a miyut, and you can explain it a bit simple. Then there is the Rav has the ability to be Talmud, which cannot the Chacham had a keli to say. Say 5-6 years, there's not a keli to a concept there. You have to show him on the table 9 chametz, a picture of 9 boxes of red and one yellow, and one of them got lost. And you have to be mad to show him a technical story of a reiv and miyut, and through there he's going to be able to get to the musik that the majority, but he's not a keli to the concept itself. He's a story, he could see things. From the story, be able to get to the idea. So there's a chilik muhusi between the tzimtzum being masber something in a seichel. Anybody can give him a shot. The Rebbe is saying here, not the Rebbe saying before shamash yiyim mechub. Not dealing with. A person can say a mashal. That's not a problem. We're talking about seeing the Indian should be expressed through a story, not just we can use a mashal. The Indian vertish the sat of shat that you're being mitzamtzim the Indian in a mashal. Here we're saying a Rav that there's the Indian itself, and he's able, which is an Indian sikhli, let's say, and he's able to give over this Indian through a story. A story is a technical material. It's not a concept. It's not a gedank. It's not an idea. It's a factual thing. So in order to be master the seichel through a ma'isa, that's a tnu of bringing the seichel through something which is not the seichel, which is just a secret. And you have to be mailim, and you're leaving the idea, the concept. You're mailim. That's a special keich. You have someone that has the ability to sense. It means he can't. If the minute he's going to leave the concept, he won't be able to see how this concept can be expressed through something which is totally not the concept, through a story. That's kind of understand. He can see the Indian. He has the Indian in an unlimited way. He has the Indian ba'emet. He can explain the Indian b'shitchiyas. That he can do. But to explain the Indian through a method which is not a hemshach to the Indian, through a story, does kind of understand. And then there's another Indian that he doesn't have the limitation that he can give this Indian a lower rate, and he's able to express the Indian through something which is Shloime min ha-Indian klal, through a ma'is. Two Indian in the Keich. So the Rebbe Shaila is the Gamech de Letzantzim Sesel Tzarel Keich Havidus. The Rebbe Shav says, the Rebbe Shav on the second. The Rebbe Shav says that there's Keich Hafla of Chok. Continues that the Chdei Laheiret Tzaseichel V'Avisha B'Moshel was not before. In order to be made at Tzaseichel, to sagen a Moshel, that from Onkemen to the idea that's an Indian. So there's a Bechlal, there's two Inyan of the Keich Havidus. The Yechelis Letzimtzum and the Yechelis Lahalim. Why is there a Shav Dafke Madgish the Keich Havidus of Lalbisha B'Moshel? Keich Havidus B'Chal let's say. Call a year L'May is year L'Mata is. Why is he Madgish that the Nekud of Yecholti Lahala Zichal Tish Lalbisha B'Moshel? That aspect in the Keich Havidus. The L'Chole Gamma Dila Tzamtzim Zichal Tzarel Keich Havidus. Tzimtzum Alein Dafke Monkam Sa Keich Havidus. Someone that has the Indian in a Mugol Keich. So he understands the Indian according to his Havana. To explain the same Indian without the whole Indian, in a more superficial way, let's say, he doesn't have the ability not to see it the way he sees it. Someone went through a grace to be able to lower it down, doesn't have the ability. This is the way he experienced it. He's mukbal in this thesis. He takes the Indian according with his Indian. To be able to hear it sounds, he also needs a special care. But the Rebbe Hashem doesn't speak about it doesn't say generally that the Yerida is going to be the Fi'erech, the Geigel Amayim. He speaks about the Yerida in Amosh. But what's that for them? So the Rebbe is going to connect it with the fact that he's speaking about the Yerida, the way it's Neveah from the Keich Hafshot. So the Shloime, we'll just start this in the program. The Shloime, that time she may be by my Yerida the Slav Shlomoshel, ki metaber kan bekeich haflo shebachot, hafshot shebachot. In Zen again, yes, I Yerida the Slav Shlomoshel. I'll just say the Nekud of the Rebbe is going to say here. There's one thing you say called Agvei. Yes, you're the Matamata. Yes, it is. You say there's a Chacham Gadol v'Nifla. And there's a Chacham which is Shalei Berech Lohi, or the Chassidus brings from Shloime. He sees the Chais in Bria Ruchni, and he has Mamshel the Ini Tasiya Agashmis. Shalei Berech. But there's Shalei Berech which is higher and lower. The Elin is in a much higher target. He's a much more of a Keli to Ruchnis, much more of a Keli to Imet. And the Taftin is in a much lower level. But it's in a much lower level. And that's one Ini of Keich Havidus. Which that Keich Havidus is not necessarily Nimshach from the Keich Hafshot of Chacham. That's a Keich Havidus which is also from a Makar Eldin Geis. The Rebbe wants to bring out a different thing. There's a Nekuda of higher and lower is not necessarily two opposite extremes. There's higher and there's lower. There's in Asiya Ruchnis is Meir Hecher Ruchnis, more Oimek. The more you go lower, the more back Shaman, so it's less or less Eichus, less Chayus. But it's not opposite. There's a Chacham Katan, and then there's lower and much lower, even more lower, till a Pashta say. It's not opposites. Higher and lower is not opposites. So the one Indian is to bring Kalagavay B'Yisir Lamata V'Yisir. I would just use the expression Kalagavay Yisir Lamata V'Yisir is that from an Indian Nailam, Ma'amshak that Onkem is Keich. That's also Keich. But he wants to bring out another Indian. Then there is that you're able to bring over the Indian to a true which is opposite your own personal true. There's an Hafshata and Halvasha, and the Halvasha B'Mashal is not just higher and lower. It's two opposites. Some of that his Indian is the Keich Hafshata of Chacham. His Indian is to see the Pshitas of the Indian, to be mafshid the Indian from his Shiur. So his Tnuah is to through every Indian to see through this Indian a certain expression of Pshitas, of higher than Shiur. For Halbasha and Amashal to be mafshid in a story, to be mafshid in a Metzias, is opposite of his Indian. It's not a question of higher and lower. Regular Rabbi Talmud, the regular Elmi Taftan is, you say, that brings the dogma. There is Mesikus in Amnigan, let's say. There's Mesikus of Seichon, there's Mesikus Chech, Mesikus Gashmis. It's not opposites. You have the Indian in a much more Edel relation. And you have the Indian the way it's Baksham. Then there is, his Indian is every Indian to be Mapshit to Thomas Levush. To see that it's a window to Nekudah Pshitas. And here, the Abashah ben Mashal is an opposite Tnuah. That's a Tnuah of, it shouldn't be Nirgash in the Indian. Through a story bringing out the certain. The Nekudah through a story is not you're in a Tnuah of being mafshid the Indian of a Sir. To bring the Indian to a mode of through a basic technical story without a Tnuah of Edelkeit, a Tnuah of Bittul, through a story to be able to bring out the Indian. The Tachtin stays in his element, in his world of Tzir. He's not a Keli to say. What's in the Pashas of the Nekudah of Moshe? He's not a Keli to say. It's not a Keli to the Her Nazar. A story, Davar Moshe, if you bring something towards his Gedalim, you can see it. When you're malvish towards his Metzias, you can see it. So here, there's this that the Rebbe Hashem wants to bring out, not the regular called the very easier the mathematical. Want to bring out that who's able, there's a certain Keich Havidus to bring the Indian to Tnu, which is opposite your Indian. to bring the svara to a place that's a tnu which is benigut to the Nekuda B'Svara. Just say, just the Nekuda Sadvarim, but the guy that we're saying Lamai. We're saying Lamai, what do you want to bring out of it? There's evidence, there's a mitzvahs. A daim mamish. And what do we want to be mamshach in Welt? What do we mamshach in Welt? Gile Lukus. What's Gile Lukus? That card that hold about the Yevei Zolas? That card of Lukus and Welt is not just higher and lower. It's two opposites. The Lukud of Eilam is mitzvahs. Mitzvahs, and it's not about bittul mitzvahs. It's zayin mitzvahs. We want to bring that in the pole, and not by the nishtin, not only in the Adam, which is Michinyari, is a keli ta'im. In Yetek pole, in the daimim, the way is in the tzir of daimim, in the tzir, there to have the ability to bring an akud of gila the and the of bit. So you want to bring an alien ta'atachim, which is heimachimah, which is in the opposite direction. And for that, you need a hecherin in the regular of kol ha'gavei yisir l'mata b'ataviyis, which we will see. So that's the Rebbe Rashab brings dafka dugma of pe'ech hamshad. And the Yerida is in of his slapshas b'mashal, because he wants to bring out a Yerida which is not just low, opposite of the Yerida. Okay, we'll continue this. So that's